Live from the Rock Sports Network studios in Rochester, New York, it's your Rochester Sports Show, Rochester Sports Mumblings!
All right. Yay.
Presented by Salvatore's Old Fashioned Pizzeria, with your hosts, Matt Goldman and John Cargill.
Right.
And here's your host, Matt Goldman.
Oh, thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
What a good
That was
announcement.
fantastic. You totally made up for last week.
Yeah,
Last week was a little rough. I had to cut your intro last week. Because you stumbled and you said Rock Sports Next Studios, but this was fantastic. This
Awesome.
time I read
Absolutely great.
that was beautiful.
I
Oh, you
read
tried to go by memory last time?
No, I didn't have a chance to read it. This time I read it, and I was able to make out the scribble.
Okay, of course. Going back to my handwriting again, right? Of course, yeah, pin it on me.
I'm going to buy you a copy of Microsoft Word.
I have, well, actually, I don't. Actually, please
1997.
No, can I please have it? I use Open Office. I'd love to have Microsoft Word.
Can you not print from Open Office?
No, you
Is that a problem?
can, but it's just it's basically got everything Microsoft Word has. It's just the
Unlicensed
it's the
knockoff.
Aldi, it's the Aldi's to the Wegmans would be for Microsoft Office. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much,
Welcome to
Patrick.
another exciting episode of Rochester Sports Mumblings. Wow, what a great weekend!
Huge week.
We have a very special guest joining us, Greg Kamp from the Red Wings radio show. Greg, thank you for
Welcome,
joining
Greg.
us. You do a show on WYSL 1040 and 92.1 Friday nights at
Friday nights at 6:30.
6:30. Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. And we will get to that in 1 second. First, we have Rhinos trivia. We're going to give away 4 tickets to the Rhinos game on Saturday, March 9th against the Toronto FC2. John, what is today's Rhinos trivia question?
All right. For today's Rhinos trivia, here's the question. Who was the Rhinos' opponent in their first Open Cup game in 1999? All right, once again, who was the Rhinos' opponent in their first Open Cup game in 1999? 4 tickets to the first correct answer.
Greg, I don't know if you're a soccer guy, but don't give the answer out.
promise
It's
I
a
won't.
very,
I
it's an
promise I won't.
extremely easy question. I will tell you that. Do you know it? Don't say it, obviously.
I do.
Okay, good, yeah. I was at that game. I remember I was at that game. And I
Oh,
remember the
man.
score. I remember almost exactly what happened in that game, even though it was, 16 years ago.
It's wow, was that
Isn't that
long?
amazing?
It's so crazy. It was that long
It's
ago,
been
but it doesn't feel like it.
16 years since the Rhinos won the Open Cup.
Just that
Amazing.
magical run. 4
Okay.
straight MLS teams.
We will get to soccer later. We have Aaran Lines, the head coach of the Western New York Flash, coming up at 2:30. In the meantime, we're going to talk some baseball. The Red Wings are off to a decent start. I mean, I think they looked really good in their first week. Second week was right? Third week they're looking a little better. 9-7 record, third place in the North Division. Of course it's very early. Greg, what's your analysis so far?
I got to say, I think your analysis is exactly correct. I mean, when they started off, I was just actually blown away. They had a very hot spring. Spring training was one of the best spring
Hottest
trainings
I've ever heard of in a while.
Both in the way they played, but also in the weather. It was the first time in years the Twins and the Red Wings did not have any rainouts or anything like that within spring training down in Fort Myers.
I know they had some games that were shortened by rain.
Yeah, shortened by rain, but they get up here, and first of all, it's freezing, and at least it
As
wasn't like
usual.
last year where
As
there was
usual.
snow on the ground.
Right.
But they get out there, and they got off to a hot start with Buffalo, and, hey, they did all right. And then, they got into a buzzsaw with Pawtucket. And from there, it's sort of been, sort of half and half. Either the pitching is there or the hitting is there. But I think at this point in time, they're starting to come back. You got some bright spots. I personally really like, obviously, the way that Pat Dean is pitching.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
the kid's lights out. And even though he's been having some hard knocks, you got to look at Taylor Rogers, and he's really, really very, very impressive. I think he's got a bright, bright future for Rochester and the Twins. And certainly you've got Alex Meyer. I mean, as one of the top, organizational prospects, and he's had a few hard knocks too. I mean, he pitched a great game back in I believe it was Pawtucket, and he just didn't get that decision. So. I think they're going to warm up once the weather warms up. It's tough. I was talking to Larry Benessi, who is the Red Wings head trainer. And Larry and I were talking a few weeks ago on the show where he was saying that it is really difficult for these guys to go from, warm weather all the way up here to Rochester and into the cold weather, cities to play baseball.
A lot of teams have to do that. I mean, all of the Northeast teams in the International League. It's not just Rochester. And I was, Greg, I was disappointed that I understand last Thursday it was snowing in Syracuse. I understand why they postponed that game. But Friday night, you know what? The Yankees and the Tigers played a game in the snow last week, all right? And it didn't turn out to be that bad. It was about 40 and, maybe 9-mile-an-hour winds, but they postponed the game anyways on that Friday night.
Well, you know what? To tell you the truth, the fact of the matter is that if you looked, not to knock Syracuse, but if you looked at the stands, I mean, even the day games, the day it was nice.
Yeah, it was rough.
There was nobody there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was more green around that than there was at the Masters. I mean, it was pretty ridiculous. But this year, especially with the schedules, and I'm certainly not going to sit here and knock the International League. I understand why they did it and why they've got to do things, but two things are really evident to me. One, when you look at trying to come out with a level schedule where the teams can have the same amount of dates roughly in warm weather as they do in cold weather, but the days of old. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I'm looking at you in your throwback Red Wing jersey there. The good old days of Bobby Grich and Don Baylor in the '70s and everything. The Red Wings started out in down south. That's where they started, and then they moved up north as the weather got warmer. Well, they don't do that anymore because they got to have the quote unquote a better schedule that gives everybody great warm weather schedule. Well, you know what? The South has better weather all year round anyway, so we don't have to make that balanced out. Then this idea that, this year, the Red Wings and all of the International League in general, they don't have a balanced schedule. How are we going to do this?
I was going to ask you about that. It was a new change this year. Looking at the schedule, the Red Wings are playing the Southern and the Western teams 7 times. A lot of them, not all of them,
right.
instead of 8. And I don't really get it. I heard Randy Mobley, the president of the International League, on with Josh Wetzel during the doubleheader.
Right.
And he said that it was because it's a 7-day week, so it makes it easier to schedule 7 days, games a week. It makes sense, but I don't personally like it. I like the way it was before. It was very balanced. It made the playoffs, it's tough enough to make the playoffs in the International League, but it made it a legitimate thing to make the playoffs because every team plays the same exact number of times against the other teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple of things. Number one is that it's, the old way definitely made for more exciting baseball. And the other thing is that, part of being a part of AAA baseball is just the wonderful idea of that, you can see these teams come through your city. And to have, a team come through now once, like, I remember, when my son was growing up, he was and still is. I mean, you can't find a bigger Atlanta Braves fan than my son. And I mean, the idea of the Gwinnett Braves coming to town once is wow. I mean, come on, they're only coming to town once. Are you kidding me? And so to see these other teams, I mean, I remember growing up, the idea of seeing, some of the other teams when I was a kid with, players like a Dave Parker or, Thurman Munson or something like that, and I only would have the opportunity to see him once. Well, that's great for ticket sales because hopefully during those games, the Red Wings are going to sell a lot more tickets and hopefully have, butts in seats. But at the same time, if you know that you've got a team coming in a couple of times, I mean, for me personally, covering the team, it's going to be difficult only from the standpoint that, I mean, how many sound bites can I get from the Syracuse Chiefs and from Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs and, from Scranton? I mean, it's going to be difficult, but hey, it's still baseball, and I live for baseball. And, if you cut me, I'm going to bleed red and blue. And, it's still better than a good day at the office.
Greg,
That is true.
It'll never happen ever, but I always wish that the International League and Pacific Coast League could play some interleague games.
How cool would that
Wouldn't that be
awesome.
like it?
That'd be great.
Let's say for like 2 weeks in July, they just played interleague games, and the Red Wings traveled, out to San Diego or to Tucson, or to, if they still have a team,
how cool
or
would
Sacramento, you know what I mean, or Fresno.
I tell you,
Spokane.
in my life, I've had the opportunity to travel an awful lot, and part of my travel, no matter what, always includes baseball. And it doesn't matter if I'm in a major league city or a minor league city. You go to a baseball game.
Sure.
That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you what, there are some great AAA teams out there and great AAA stadiums. I mean, one of my favorite places is go to Salt Lake City to watch the Bees play.
Yeah,
I mean,
sounds fun.
That's awesome. And then, now they're in the International League, but the first time that I traveled to Louisville and I saw Louisville play, they were actually part of the Pacific Coast League. And when I saw their stadium, I was like, this is one of the coolest stadiums in all of baseball. Imagine this. Their stadium, now this is cool. Think about why other stadiums don't do this, and I can't figure it out. Their stadium is constructed so that when you're in line for a beer or a hot dog or a pizza or nachos, guess which way you're turned? You're turned towards the field.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
So instead of facing the wall and watching the game on a monitor, you're actually facing the field, and the guys who are selling the food, they're facing the wall. So, I mean, that's
very
great.
cool.
Yeah,
I like
cool.
that.
And going to see the Modesto Nuts, and I mean,
Nice.
I've also seen the Lansing Lug Nuts.
I love that name,
the
Lansing
Lug
Nuts.
I
I love that
yeah.
name.
Say that,
That's a cool
and the
stadium
Savannah
downtown.
Sand Gnats. I
Okay.
mean, come on, you
What
gotta
about the
love it.
Auburn Double Days?
I have not seen the Auburn Double Days.
One of my favorite things that I ever did was going to Major League Spring Training in Florida and just seeing like 12 different stadiums down
Absolutely.
there. I love those little single A stadiums in Florida.
I love it. I'll tell you a great story about a spring training time. Years ago, this was before they won the World Series. We would always go to Fort Myers, and the Red Sox. I am a Red Sox fan, so don't write in and rip these guys. It's me saying that I'm a Red Sox fan. But we would go to the Red Sox spring training, and it was the time before they won the World Series. So basically, you could go wherever you wanted, and nobody cared. And my son, who at the time was probably, 7 or 8, I was just walking around, and I was paying attention to the ball players, and I did, the thing that every father fears he's going to do. I lost my kid.
Oh.
And I'm walking around Fort Myers and at the spring training, and I can't find him. And all of a sudden, I hear my son yell my name, and I turn around, and probably about 40 yards away, my son is in the dugout with Louis Tiant.
Wow.
And they're having a freaking conversation.
Wow, that's great.
And Louis Tiant's talking to him. He gives him a couple autographed baseballs. He met Carl Yastrzemski. And then years later, when the Red Wings actually had Louis Tiant come up to sign autographs, he remembered my son. And we actually sat up in a suite with Louis Tiant and talked to him, and it was great. But yeah, going to spring training. But nowadays, forget it. You can't get near those kids.
You know what though? I was at spring training, I think like 5 years ago now, and the players were really accessible. I mean, they just walked. They all signed autographs before the game. Well, I saw the Mets, I saw the Twins, I saw the Red Sox, I saw the Marlins, I saw all.
Yeah, I think it depends on what teams it happens to be. Yeah, I know. I've heard, and I have not been to Arizona for spring training, but I've heard that the Arizona guys are really accessible. They they love it. But I know some of the Florida teams have made it a little bit tough.
The atmosphere is just great because the sun's out, especially for all the snowbirds that come down for spring training. It's like, oh my God, the sun is out, and it's just everyone seems very relaxed.
No,
and
spring training.
I've never been. It sounds amazing.
Greg, we got to talk about. I know. You got to have an idea what I'm going to talk about. Pitch timers. My favorite topic of the new season.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
All right, I think everyone is. Now, at the home opener for the Red Wings, that game flew by. 2 hours, 9 minutes.
Right.
It felt faster.
Yep.
The pitch timer operator seemed a little inconsistent. But that's why Randy Mobley, the president of the International League, has been going around to every city to train himself the operators, which is great because that's extremely important. Because if he's off by 2 seconds, and starting Friday, May 1st, when they start this Friday, when they start enforcing, you're going to have ejections.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So these guys got to be on the money, and you know what's going to happen.
Oh sure,
you know what's going to happen to every team. The operator's going to mess up. The umpire's going to have no idea because he's got other stuff to worry about. They want the umpires to enforce it, tooth and nail. He's going to see 5 seconds, boom, strike, and then you're going to get an ejection.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, sitting up in the press box and watching the games, and just sort of looking over the shoulder of the guys who keep the time clock. I mean, I feel bad for them. I mean,
it's a tough job. I mean, you got to be on the ball.
I tell you what, I would rather be an official scorer than to be the time clock operator because at least with the official score, you can look at a replay and say you messed up.
Right.
But with the time clock, I mean, you actually have to know exactly when you've got to start that clock and when you've got to stop it.
Yep.
And if you are a millisecond off, it's exactly as you say. You could have an ejection, which could ultimately determine the game.
It could be 2 strikes. Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, and that clock hits 5 seconds. Boom, you got strike 3, game over. I hope to God that doesn't happen. But let's say
that'd be a fiasco.
They don't. It hits 5, and the umpires don't call it. You got the same problem,
right?
Because it's supposed to be enforced. To the letter. There should be no judgment involved.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be tough. I mean, I also think that it's going to be tough for the umpires, and here's why. Just an observation, and this is just strictly watching the umpires. As you sit there in the press box and you watch the umpires, they're watching the pitcher. They're watching, to see his movements and so on. And then they've got the clock sort of behind the pitcher. And they got to watch the pitcher. They got to watch the clock.
Yeah,
and
you got to keep it in your peripheral.
Yeah, and now at the same time if something goes wrong, they've got to figure out what to do. I mean, it's too much to ask, I think.
Well, here's what I wonder if the base umpires can also be involved because they have the third base umpire, if he's on third, is going to have a pretty good view of that clock to the right side of home plate. So I wonder if it hits 5 or hits 0, if he can call time.
But
that would make sense.
But throw a curve at you, no pun intended. You've got runners on first and second. Now you've got, you're working with a 3-man umpire crew, or in some cases, in the International League,
4, yeah.
you could go 2, you could go 4, but now you've got a guy, the home plate umpire is watching the pitcher. He's watching the batter. Now you've got you've got runners on first base or second base. Now you've got to watch for a balk. You've got to watch the clock. You've got to watch the batter. It gets very, very crazy out there, and somebody's going to miss something. And man, I tell you what, I don't want to be the guy that has to call something like this and throw somebody out. And then one of those managers goes nuts. And it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Probably more than once.
The positive side of it, all right, so the International League, 2005 games were 2 hours, 36 minutes for a 9-inning game. 2015, 2 hours, 56 minutes. It's a 20-minute increase. To me, I'm a baseball fan. I don't care.
Neither do I.
But for some reason, Rob Manfred, the new commissioner of Major League Baseball, it seems like from him on down, they want to decrease game times. Okay, fine. So far, Red Wing games this season, 9-inning games have averaged 2 hours, 51 minutes. So we're cutting 5 minutes off so far.
Sure.
Pretty insignificant.
Yeah.
Mike Quaddy has said several times this is much ado about nothing.
Yep.
I think a lot of people have said that. There are some guys, though, in major leagues and minor leagues that are still very upset about this. David Ortiz being one of them in the majors, with you can't step out of the box now in the major leagues. And I think there's going to be some guys that are not going to like them.
Well, it's funny. I was listening to MLB Network this morning, and they were talking about this whole thing. And one of the guys they said it was going to really have no effect on was Mr. Miley for the Red Sox. And so far, he can't even get the ball over the plate. So it's not going to affect him at all. But, this stuff is just – I understand why they're doing it. But, again, to the true baseball fan – who cares? I mean, baseball is the only game that doesn't have a clock.
There was one great quote. I forgot who it was, but he said from the majors. He said, "At the end of the day, a baseball game will take as long as it wants to."
Absolutely. And I don't know what it was because I haven't looked it up, but I'd be curious to know how long the Yankee Red Sox series was. I mean, certainly we had the 19-inning game, but I mean. I bet you it didn't have any effect on those games
Well,
whatsoever.
I'll tell you what, the Subway Series was just going on this weekend.
Right.
You obviously, Yankees Red Sox games are usually 4 hours, right?
Exactly.
For 9 inning games. Usually Yankees Mets were 3.5. Every game's been under 3 hours for the Subway Series. Everyone is saying that the major league games are faster paced. They seem to be faster paced. You look at box scores. There seems to be more games under 3 hours. Now, it could be deceiving. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the year how much time is actually shaved off. But I'm sure it will be at least a couple minutes.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll see how it goes. I think we'll get there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when we get to playoff time, World Series time, and then
if it slows down again.
If it goes, now the big issue is certainly the conversations about the DH and certainly the things about the designated hitter and the pitchers batting and getting hurt. And, certainly
that's one thing I always missed about Rochester being an AL city. Is that we never got to see the DH. In Double and Triple A, if you're an NL city playing another NL team, you use the pitcher's bat. I always thought that'd be cool to see in the minors.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, I'm not a huge fan of the DH. I personally think
I'm a National League guy.
I'm a National League guy too. And again, these guys on MLB today were having a huge debate over just making the DH for all of baseball altogether. And boy, I would hate to see that. But at the same time, you got a guy, getting hurt like Wainwright and so on and so forth. So it's going to be an interesting debate. And if there's no debate, then there's no guys like us doing radio.
Well, I mean, MLB has been pretty reactive lately. Buster Posey got hurt. They put in a new home plate collision rule, which has been extremely confusing still, and we're in year 2 of it. The Mets had a play the other day at the plate where, for some reason, they were called the Atlanta Braves was called safe at home on the obstruction. It just seems inconsistent, or at least not that clear still, right? And they kind of reacted to that. I think with these pitch timers, I think if it goes well or relatively well this year in Double and Triple A, it'll be in the majors next year. That's my prediction.
Yeah, no doubt. And the bigger issue to me is, hey, why don't we do something smart, Mr. Commissioner, and why don't we have set dates and games for these suspensions that are taking place within baseball, so that we know what the penalties are, both financially and the number of games.
You mean for pitchers?
Yeah,
brawling?
For pitchers and the brawls and all that. Let's have set numbers.
I would have to disagree with you, because how can you say a team could just say, oh, he's not ready to pitch on this day or whatever, or we're giving him an extra day rest, and that could. I think if you suspend a pitcher 6 games, that's going to pretty much guarantee he misses a start.
Right.
How can you say, like, oh, he's scheduled, because teams change the schedule, their rotation all the time. So how could you say, oh, he's scheduled to pitch Thursday, so we're going to suspend him for Thursday?
Right. Yeah. Well, I see your point. I think he should, they should be suspended at least for a start or whatever. But also the other thing with the bullpen's clear and all that. Hey, first man off the bench. There's a fine suspension.
Greg, why are there so many brawls in the major leagues and we do not see them in AAA? Which is probably a good thing, but.
I think it's a great thing we don't see that in AAA, but I don't know. This year, man, it's out of control.
It is. It's the Royals have had like 5 of them.
Well, the Royals got a chip on their shoulder, man. They're out to prove something. But you got Oakland in there and the White Sox. There's going to be something really bad happening. I don't think that the commissioner's going to do anything really serious until somebody really gets hurt and ruins a pennant possibility.
All right, so let's get back to the Red Wings. So far, Pat Dean looking amazing.
Yep, absolutely.
2-0, .90 ERA, 22 strikeouts in 3 starts. Alex Meyer, 20 strikeouts in 3 starts. Rogers, 19 strikeouts in 3 starts. There's some good pitchers on this team, and they're fanning a lot of guys.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, these guys they work really well in spring training on the pitching, and I think that you've got strong pitching down here in Rochester. The concern that I have as a fan, as a Red Wing fan, is the Twins pitching isn't doing so well.
No.
So how long are these guys going to stay down here?
Which was an issue last year.
Right. I mean, and of course Trevor May's having some difficulties up with the Twins now, but at the same time, as I said earlier, Dean is just that kid is just unbelievable, and I really
and
like.
He wasn't even slated to pitch in AAA this year.
Correct.
When they who got suspended for the Twins?
Escobar. Not Escobar. It was Santana. No, not Santana.
Yeah. Anyways, the player that got suspended 50 games for the drugs. That produce a spot for Alex May to get called up.
Well, Trevor May
up,
went up because of the injury that they had, and to can't remember who it was, but they called him up. And now Trevor's up there, and he's doing well. And, now you got Meyer down here who's throwing lots of Ks. You got Dean. You've got Rogers, who I really, really like. I would have to say that he's the one who impresses me the most. Young kid, and just, he was a teammate of Alex Meyer at the University of Kentucky.
Okay.
They're teammates and buddies there. And, you still got the guys who are backup. I mean, A.J. Ochter is
A.J. Ochter, Michigan State Spartan.
Just,
good dude. What other guys come out of Michigan State to make the major leagues,
There
right?
you go.
That's pretty cool.
There you go. And he was real close to making the Twins out of spring training. He was very close to making the Twins. And, this pitching staff, I think, if they can stay together, I don't see much of a duration for Tonkin to be down here. I think he's probably going to be a call-up at some point during the season. And if they can stay together, I think they're going to be great. With also, Wheeler is you got to love Wheeler. He's old school. He's got the stirrups working for himself and everything. But if they can stay together, I think they'll be fine. At the same time, you've got to get the pitching and the hitting going together. I was talking the other day to when they got back from Syracuse to Doug Bernier, and Doug was saying that that's really what it is right now. It's a matter of getting the pitching and the hitting and the fielding all working together and putting it all together. But it's certainly not for lack of trying. It's a veteran team. There's not a lot of rookies per se for a AAA team. And they know what their job is. I mean, if you talk to Quaddy, who is somebody, I got to tell you, I like Gene Glynn, but Mike Quaddy is there's nothing about this guy that I don't like. He is professional. He answers
He's a major league manager.
He is. I love the way he runs the ball club, but I love the way he runs the clubhouse. And, when we were talking the other day, he just said, I got to let these guys go out there and they got to play ball. They know what their job is. And he said they know what they have to do, and I don't have to harp on them about it. They know what they've got to go out there and do. And you know what? To the man, every guy on that team knows that too. And to me, that's a heck of a luxury to have at AAA.
Now, speaking of Quaddy, I like when a manager comes in here and is not afraid to make moves. The second home game of the season against Buffalo, they were down by 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth. He puts in 2 pinch hitters. They both get on base, okay? Now, the other day, game 1 of the doubleheader, Saturday against Syracuse, he used 4 pitchers in an inning, which is something you don't really see in the minor leagues, and it didn't really work out. Syracuse ends up with 4 runs in the inning, and the Red Wings lose the game. What are your thoughts on that? I like it. I think you got to manage AAA like it's the major leagues, and a lot of managers down here don't do that.
Here's what I like about Quaddy. I asked him this on the day that he was introduced as the Red Wing manager. My question to him was, hey, Mike, do you look at managing AAA baseball as a development program or a winning program? And he had a really good answer, and I don't look at it as a staged answer. Mike's answer was, it's both. He said, I need to teach these guys how to win, and I need to teach these guys to win. Now, that's a heck of an answer for a AAA manager. And to your point, I think it really has a lot to do with the fact that he, in fact, was a major league manager. So I love the idea that Mike's whole goal is to win here. And he knows that the only way he's going to win here is to develop these ball players into being mature ball players and being ball players that know how to go out there and win. Knowing how to win is half the battle to winning the ball games. So Mike is certainly a major leaguer in all aspects, and he's not afraid to make a move. And I think what's also great about it is that his relationship with Terry Ryan of the Twins, Mike has said a couple of times that it's a great relationship, and that one of the things he talked about before he got the job was that he wanted to be able to manage his way. And thus far this season, Mike's managing his way, and I think it's great.
Greg, we got to switch to soccer for a few minutes. We're going to have Aaran Lines, the head coach of the Western New York Flash Line. Can you stick around for a few minutes? I got some really cool stuff that I want to talk about.
Absolutely, not a problem.
John, why don't you tell us about some of our sponsors?
All right, in the meantime, I can tell you about some of our very wonderful sponsors. Leroy Discount Liquor. Definitely, on a nice day like today, why don't you go out to Leroy Discount Liquor? You can talk to Johnny, who's a good friend of the show. Check out his great selection of wine and whiskey. He has $15.99 under wine, $5.99 wine, which I've tried in the show. Great quality, great stuff. Head out to Leroy. Say hi to our good buddies at Leroy Discount Liquor. Also, Joey's Place, 936 Portland Avenue. A good friend of the show and also a fellow co-host in the show, Mark Sotile. $15.95 oil change if you mention the show. Serving the community for 5 years. He's been a very great service. 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. So go visit our good buddy Mark Sotile at Joey's Place. So I'm not a baseball guy. So I'm trying to keep up with the conversation, and I'm looking I know the big thing is the pitch clocks, but I'm thinking didn't they say that rule has been in the books forever? Or
There has been a rule that you've got to be able to pitch within a certain amount of time, but it's not something that's I would say has been something that has been followed all the time. It's within reason, and if you watch some of these guys, it's especially at the major league level. I mean, you could go into the kitchen and cook a 5-course meal, and they're still in between.
Yeah, I've noticed that. For example, someone will come into the batter's box and they'll fix their glove and sort of hit the bat against their shoe, and the pitcher will look at the ball a little bit. And
well, it's like David Ortiz, the Red Sox. I mean, he's one of the guys who complains about this the most. But David would certainly. I mean, if we're up to him, he would go into the dugout and grab a snack and everything in between pitches. But that's something that's not going to happen.
So this really throws his game off.
Totally. But hey, it's part of the game, and he'll have to learn how to do that now.
Do you think that?
All right, we're now joined by the head coach of the Western New York Flash, Aaran Lines. Aaran, thank you so much for joining us. A week off for you guys. It's got to be nice to have another week of practice before the home opener after kind of a tough road trip.
Yeah, I mean, we've made a few changes here to our to the squad in the off season, and we knew that this was always going to be a tough road trip. It's one of the toughest in our league when you travel out to Seattle and Portland. We felt we progressed between game 1 and game 2. We really progressed, and I think that's the most important thing when you got a young group, that you feel that they're applying the information that they're giving and progressing, and we felt that was the case. So obviously now we're back home. We're excited about our home opener against the Boston Breakers. We've worked hard. We've had a bye week to work on to work on areas of the game that we felt we need to, and we're excited about the opportunity to host Boston and pick up our first win of the season.
Now, obviously, arguably the biggest news of soccer in Western New York this offseason was the Sidney Leroux trade. I think it came to a shock to everyone in the soccer community here, trading the rights to Abby Wambach and Amber Brooks and a first-round pick for Sidney Leroux and Amanda Frisbee. Tell us, how did that trade come together, and how's that worked out so far?
Well, we'd built this team during the off season around and planned to have Abby a part of it. So once we got the news that was that she was going to not play this season, I mean, it became a lot easier to trade away the rights for
Sure.
Abby Wambach in a deal. Otherwise we don't make that move. So that's where I'm at right now. I mean, it's fantastic that we're able to get that taken care of. Sidney Leroux's a fantastic player with a huge future, and she's able to help us right away. So she'll be excited to play her former club as well, the Boston Breakers.
Now, has it been difficult for her to plug into a totally new system? I know when she was playing out west that she said, she was just kind of one of a number of superstars, and now she's kind of the girl up front for you guys. Is it different for her to adjust to a new system?
No, I mean, every player needs a little bit of time to integrate themselves. Some perhaps more than others, and everyone's a little bit different with that. Obviously, Sydney had probably planned on either staying in Seattle or perhaps being traded elsewhere, and it came about Western New York was able to get the deal done. So she's embraced it. She's been great. We've enjoyed having her, and we ultimately just want her to succeed and feel like she's an important piece of our team, and and so she can be productive and help the club. And I think integration, obviously coming in very late, both Whitney Eng and Sydney LaRue coming in late as two new players around a whole new team, pretty much new team, is going to take a little bit of time. I think that's normal, and they've progressed now with the bye week, and today they were working hard, so we feel we'll be a lot further along come our home opener on Saturday.
Now, Sydney and Whitney Engen, of course, they're leaving to play with the United States national team for the World Cup, correct?
Yes.
Now, do you find that it might be an advantage for you guys because you're only losing 2 players, and I know a lot of the other teams in the NWSL are losing more players than you guys to the United States or to Mexico or to Canada?
Yeah, no, we built this roster with that in mind. Obviously, we're very young, so the quicker we can gel, the quicker we can gain our experience, and we certainly gain that quick in Seattle and Portland. The quicker we can get comfortable, the better we'll be. So that's what this has been about now. We played a game we played in Portland in front of 15,000 people.
Wow!
Wow!
And the average age on our team was 23.4.
Okay, wow.
So, we're young, we're exciting, and, we're coming together. But I think, this will be a good phase for us once the players are away, preparing for the World Cup for their respective national teams. And in our case, the 2 U.S. national team players. Then I think it'll be a really good time for us to come together, and that was the plan all along. Maybe a little bit younger than what I had originally planned for, but we'll make that up with work rate.
Aaron, as exciting as it was to see Abby play here the last couple of years, which is really cool. I mean, she's an incredible player, obviously. I think it's really exciting to have a player like Sydney LaRue here, and I think the fans are going to embrace it. I hope they do. I think she's going to be a good draw. Have you heard? Are you guys expecting a good crowd for the opener?
Yeah, we're expecting a good crowd. Obviously, I'm incredibly grateful for Abby's commitment to the club. Abby was, a pleasure to work with. Here over the 2 years, she's a great human being, fantastic footballer, and ultimately, I respect that decision that she made. Just the timing of it wasn't ideal, and we're able to figure it out to get Sydney LaRue here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic player, and the Western New York, Rochester, Buffalo community, Syracuse community should be really excited about seeing a player, Sydney LaRue's caliber, and the other ones, not to forget the young ones that we've got in here. We've got some really, really talented players that will make that next step into international football at some stage, and so they need all the support they can get here from the community, and we're hoping to see that in a good attendance for our home opener this weekend.
That's one thing that's great about the Flash is you guys are very regionalized. There are fans, you see in matches that'll come from Pennsylvania or Ohio because this is the highest level of women's soccer in the world, possibly. And all these little girls that play soccer, they want to come and watch the national team stars play, and that's why I think it's so wonderful that
great.
U.S. Soccer was able to put this league together. The new reincarnation, which I think is got to be stronger than the older attempts at a Division I women's league, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of our, getting back to the support factor, we have people that come down from Southern Ontario and up in Canada, and as far as Syracuse and Rochester. Obviously, we'd like those numbers. We'd like, we're a striving franchise here. We'd like to have as much support as possible. And from my end, as a coach, general manager, I just want the support for the young ladies that are sacrificing out there on the field. You know what I mean? It's wonderful for them to, as I said last game out, we played in front of 15,000 people in
Yeah,
Portland.
that's amazing, the support that they get in Portland and Seattle for women's
Oh,
soccer.
yeah.
It's fantastic.
Definitely
if we
great.
can continue to do what we did in 2011, 2011 and then 2013 in terms of attendance, we'll be on track. So that's obviously going to be really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, in 2011, obviously Marta was the huge draw. I mean, not only just Marta, that team was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe one of the best women's professional soccer teams ever assembled. And then in 2013, having Abby come in. And I think with Sydney coming in. Now, how many games is she going to end up playing? Do you know how many home games she'll play this year?
Yeah, well, all U.S. national team players play in 3 games. So they're all playing the first 3, ends up being 3 games.
Okay.
First 4 weeks, because there's a bye week in there. So they've all been available for that, and then they go away and they prepare in training camp, and they have a few friendlies before they enter into the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And then all players are returning to their respective franchises as soon as the U.S. Are eliminated from the World Cup, hopefully after the World Cup, successful World Cup final.
So, and I think the World Cup ends, end of July? I'm not really sure what the time is.
I believe it's the end of June.
Oh, end of June, okay.
End of June, early July, those players will be back with their franchises.
Okay, very cool.
So,
Aaron...
Hopefully with a lot of buzz about the women's game. It's obviously it's a big year. It's a World Cup year. It's that infamous 3rd year of professional women's league. So we're dearly hoping that the US
the infamous 3rd year. Well, yeah, I think it'll be better this time. I feel like, I mean, you obviously would know more than we would, but it seems like this league is here to stay.
Yeah, the support of U.S. Soccer and Nike in particular, and there's other sponsors that have since come on board has been very good. And obviously the continued support from the respective ownership groups, and these owners, I think all bar one franchise, they continually lose money. So, respect to the different owners for their belief and affording, young women the opportunity to play. And this is undoubtedly the best league in the world from top to bottom. I mean, you go into games here, whoever you're playing, there's no guarantees that you'll get points out of games, and I think you're seeing that reflected in the results after the first 3 weeks of the season. So, undoubtedly the best league in the world, with many of the best players in the world, and certainly all the U.S. national team players being here. So we wish them nothing but the best. That's obviously going to help our league, but obviously we're very very happy with the support that U.S. Soccer and Nike have put into the league this far. It's been fantastic, and hopefully it can continue.
Aaron, I think it's great that the World Cup is so close to home this year, being played in Canada. It's great for the fans here to be able to watch games at, a normal hour and not in the morning or not in the middle of the night, like other men's and women's World Cups. I think it's really interesting, your journey, how you got to Rochester. You played all over the world. You played in Germany, you played in New Zealand and Australia, and I think some other places. How did you end up in Rochester in the first place?
I ended up in Rochester because I thought Rochester was just outside of New York City.
No, seriously?
No, I was. I was in Portland. I came out to the U.S. and I was signed by the Portland Timbers in 2005. My fellow national team player was the assistant. Had since retired and was the assistant coach there. He's now since been named general manager there, Gavin Wilkinson. He brought me out here to the US, and the only reason I ended up out in Rochester was because Portland wanted to keep me on, but Rochester came through pretty aggressively, New York style, and I thought Rochester was about an hour outside of Manhattan. I thought that would be kind of cool.
You were hoping for those 99-cent New York pizza slices, right?
I didn't do my geography really well. Shame on me.
Well, I
mean, on me. Being a well-traveled guy, but
right. I mean, you can't blame me. Like I've been to New Zealand. It's a relatively small country. I mean, compared to when you come over here, things are a little more spread out.
Yeah, they are, mate. I mean, New Zealand's stunning, beautiful place.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Proud to call it the place of my birth, and one day I'll head back there.
It's probably the most beautiful country I ever visited. It just the landscapes are so different. I mean, from the north to the south, you go from like the north kind of looks like the Adirondacks up here, and then you go through and just the beautiful like rolling grass hills like in Central California, and then you get to the south and you have these giant snow-capped mountains and people are skiing. It's just an unbelievable place.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. It's got a little bit of everything, I mean, in saying that, so does America.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for a slightly smaller country,
yeah.
New Zealand has a lot. Palm trees, golden sand to
Mm-hmm.
volcanic sand, and some of the tallest mountains in the world. So, we're lucky. It's a nice place.
So, Aaron, you played for the New Zealand national team for 9 years, which is incredible. 31 caps, 4 goals. It's incredible to me. You played at an extremely high level, and that's got to help. Bringing your experience to these women. It's got to be a great relationship.
Yeah, no, definitely the playing side of it. With regards to dosing, I guess, training sessions, preparation. You've been there yourself. You know what preparation is needed to be able to perform properly.
Mm-hmm.
Training plans, cycles, and things like that. All you do reflect a little bit on your playing career. The further away that the playing career gets, though, the more you refer on your coaching experience. I've been head coach here now. This is my 7th season.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've gained a little bit, of experience over the years, and kind of rely on that along with the obviously the distant playing ground. So, playing background. So yeah, a little bit of both at this point.
Well, Aaron, this is an exciting week for Rochester and for Western New York soccer fans. Home opener this Saturday night against Boston, 7 p.m. at Salem Stadium. Should be nice weather. It's looking like it's going to be fairly warm, probably a little bit warm, hopefully a little bit warmer than the Rhinos' home opener yesterday, which was a little chilly, but it was a success. And it should be exciting. So good luck this weekend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good week.
Yep.
All right. Look forward to seeing you Saturday.
We'll see you there.
All right.
That was Aaran Lines, head coach of the Western New York Flash. I love his accent. I love that Kiwi accent so much. I miss that.
John, how long were you in New Zealand?
Only for 4 weeks, maybe. But what a beautiful country. Seriously, that and Israel are the two most beautiful countries I ever visited.
You ever been to Iceland?
No, I would love to go to Iceland.
That's one place I'd love to go. I hear the beauty of Iceland is just captivating.
Yeah, there's so many. I want to go to like all the countries. I just want to go everywhere.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things about living in a global society. It's more obtainable than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what airplanes are for.
And boats and trains.
Well, I mean, but come on, if you could fly to Iceland as opposed to,
I'd rather take a boat.
As opposed to, you'd rather take a boat to Iceland?
I would love to take a
take
I would love to be on a nice
2 months.
ship. Oh,
okay,
great.
John Columbus. All right, we have Greg Kamp from the Rochester Red Wings radio show on WISL 1040 and 92.1 FM. John's obsessed with this note I left for myself that says lobster in fridge.
What is going on with this?
I bought a lobster. Obviously, I bought a frozen lobster tail, and I'm trying to de-thaw it in the fridge in the office. What else would that mean?
It's in the fridge in the office?
Yes. What else would that mean? I obviously have a frozen lobster tail that I'm de-thawing. Matt Goldman, John Cargill with Greg Kamp. Greg, I have some really interesting stuff. We just got to thank a sponsor for a second. Brand new sponsor, actually.
Ooh, another one?
Yeah. I got a question for you guys out there in podcast land. Who wants to lose weight? Can you imagine what it would feel like to shed those extra pounds, to look in the mirror and see a slimmer, sexier you? Well, I wanted to lose some extra pounds, so I went to see Dr. Matt Boehm and his crew at Restoration Wellness. Dr. Matt has a custom fat loss system for you, and he guarantees you'll lose 20 to 40 pounds of pure fat in 40 days.
40
Guaranteed,
days.
or
Wow.
your money back. And I know what you're thinking. 20 to 40 pounds in 40 days, that's impossible. But no, this is real. It works. I dropped 20 pounds in the first 26 days on this program.
You can tell.
Look
you
at
can
me.
See
don't
it.
I look good?
I mean, look at how loose your jersey fits.
This jersey it doesn't even fit me anymore. 20 pounds in 26 days,
All right.
and I'm keeping it off. How is this possible, you might ask? It's because Dr. Matt has the most advanced weight loss technology, and it's all scientifically and nutritionally based. This is no magic mumbo-jumbo. This is pure science, okay? And the program is customized to exactly fit your body's needs. Dr. Matt's program puts you in an intense fat-burning zone, and you stay in that fat-burning zone until you meet your weight loss goal. Be honest with yourself. Are you ready to lose weight and make massive changes to your life? Then do what I did. Give Dr. Matt and his team a call today. 844-THIN-ME. That's 844-THIN-ME. Really easy number to remember. Or really easy website, loseweightrochester.com. That's
how much easier can that get?
Loseweightrochester.com, 844-THIN-ME. Dr. Matt Boehm, a proud new sponsor of Rochester Sports Mumblings. Greg Kamp.
Welcome to the team.
I found this story the other day. Minor league baseball players are putting together a class action suit suing Major League Baseball for not paying minimum wage.
Interesting.
So they're alleging that if they calculate the hours that they're actually working, including practicing and training and the games, that they're making well under minimum wage, something like $2 an hour. And so they're suing Major League Baseball. They said this is going to go to trial in February 2017. According to the complaint, most minor leaguers earn between $3,000 and $7,500 for the entire year. And it also alleges that while salaries of major leaguers have skyrocketed by more than 2,000% since 1976, the average wage earned by minor leaguers has increased by only 75%, which is far below the inflation rate of 400%. The reason they say is simple. Major leaguers have a union. Minor leaguers don't.
Oh, okay.
Wow. That's a really tough one. I got to be careful so I don't get kicked out of the locker room tonight. But, it's interesting. I mean, the life of a minor leaguer is a difficult one. I mean, I would not want to be the guy who has to travel, on the bus all the time to Syracuse and Scranton and Pawtucket and, Norfolk and all these other cities that you've got to go to. And, your per diems on your meals and stuff like that is a lot lower than the minor leaguers or than the major leaguers. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, I support what these guys are saying, that, they don't get the same types of things. Yes, I mean, some of their gloves and their equipment is taken care of either by the major league club or by endorsements or by just free giveaways. And, whether or not they're cleats and some of that other stuff that they get, the swag, you go into a locker room sometimes, especially in spring training. And, me personally, holy cow, I died and went to heaven when you see all the mitts and the bats and everything else. So, when you look at it that way, and then, of course, the spreads that go on with the food and stuff like that after the games.
How are the spreads, though, in the minor leagues? I mean, I'm guessing
I was going to ask
they're
that
not
same
getting
question.
caviar,
No,
right?
not at all.
They're not getting my lobster
Are they getting
tail
the lobster
in
tails
fridge,
in the office
right?
fridge?
No, they're getting
That's
no.
obvious by the smell.
They're getting pizza, right?
The lobster tail in your refrigerator would have to be split throughout the entire roster. So the spreads.
But
in
what about
minor
the Portland
league,
Sea Dogs? They might be getting lobster.
They
Oh,
might.
that's
They
true.
might.
That's a very
They
good
might.
point,
Or the blue claws might be getting
Yeah,
that.
The Blue Claws are probably getting.
But
Where are the Blue Claws? Is that Florida?
No, I think they're up in New England.
Oh, okay.
But
what is?
I would have to say that I think that minor leaguers do deserve a little something. I mean, it's a tough life, and they're going for the dream. And let's face it, these guys, what is it? There's 750 major leaguers in all of baseball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and these guys are going for the dream. And when you multiply them at all levels of minor league baseball and the stuff that they do, I mean, you go to a Red Wings game, and the fans don't realize this, but you got a 7:05 game. If you get to the ballpark at about 1:00, the guys are there, and they're there.
So it's a long work day.
Absolutely. I mean,
and that's 1:00 till 10, 11 o'clock.
I imagine some of them
least.
have like second jobs too.
No, you
not-
can in the minor leagues.
Not
You
during the
cannot.
season.
You can.
Yeah.
You can't.
And also, I mean, let's look at the whole schedule. I mean, they play 144 games, 145 games, whatever it is, and then you've got these guys who they travel on the bus for the most part, unless you're taking a big road trip like they might be going to Indianapolis and Louisville and stuff like that, where they might take a plane. A 7:05 game. They're at the ballpark anywhere from say 12:30 to 1:30. They're doing their hitting on their own, their tunnel work, their tee work. They do their physical therapy stuff that they've got to do if they're not hurt, and if they are hurt, then they've got to do even more physical therapy and intense therapy that's dictated by the major league club and by the head trainers. And then you've got to go through other issues such as getting yourself ready for anything that's going on. If you're a pitcher, if you're a catcher, you've got to go through the strategy. You've got to go through video. I mean, you've got to go through all that stuff just like the major leaguers do. And then, there's other things. You go through a pro locker room. And when I say pro, I mean just, minor league, but still pro. Yeah. And there's bulletin board stuff that says, hey, such and such is looking for 2 players to come to a nonprofit appearance.
Oh, charity stuff.
Yeah. Right. So can I have 2 pitchers show up at this event? And there's the autograph session for the players before the game, and
do they get paid for a lot of those?
No, they don't. Mm-hmm. And it's a tough life.
Is it in their contract that they have to?
I don't think they have to, but especially in Rochester, these guys give back a lot. I mean, I was amazed. One time, this was 2 years ago when Gene Glynn came into Rochester. I asked Gene one time, I said, Gene, you're new to Rochester, and now your players are new to Rochester. What do you tell them? And he said to me, there's a sign out there in the outfield, and the sign says Baseball City, USA. I just point to the sign and tell the players that's what they better realize. And so those guys understand that part of this is to give back to the community. So when you look at that kind of stuff, hey, I'm all for it. If they can make some more money, God bless them.
I was shocked to read these figures. The the minimum salary at rookie league is $1,100 a month. The minimum salary at AAA is only $2,150 a month, which if you multiply that by 6 months is only $12,900. I was always under the impression these guys were making a lot more money than they are.
Yeah, like the $30,000 range.
And I thought there were I always heard there were minor league veterans,
right,
that are making like $100,000-$150,000 a year.
And
is that true?
And there may be some guys out there for sure. Take a guy
like Doug Bernier.
You take a guy like Mike Hessman from the Toledo Mud Hens.
Sure, he's got to be making like $250,000.
He's the International League home run king. I mean, he's a lifelong International League player. I mean, he's got to be making some serious coin. And then you got to look at these guys though. But part of the thing is that you've got to remember that what these guys do, they're doing 12 months a year. It's a 24/7 job. Mm. If you want to make it to the major leagues, you know what? You don't go home and sit down and eat bonbons come October or November. A lot of these guys.
You don't want to eat Fruit Loops like CC Sabathia.
Exactly. Well, I think he's eating more than Fruit Loops.
No, it's Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch.
Right.
Yeah, well.
It's working well for him.
Do you know that story? He lost a bunch of weight, right? And he didn't pitch very well last year. And he said it was because he lost the weight. And he said the reason that he had gained so much weight because every night he would eat 5 bowls of Captain Crunch after the game. So apparently this year he said he went back to eating Captain Crunch.
Yeah, CC Sabathia's favorite phrase is "I'll have another," and he should really be playing for the Twins because the Twins are sometimes called the Twinkies. Well,
I'm sure he could use them. Yeah.
But
they had those fried Twinkies at
what about that other guy,
at
Prince
Target
Fielder?
Field? I think.
Right.
Didn't they try those for a Wild Frontier?
I think they did try them at Frontier, and actually at Yankee Stadium, I think I saw this year that one of their new things is like nachos on a stick. I hope CC doesn't go after that.
Oh God.
But these guys are working, and then sometimes they get told they have to go play winter ball.
Yeah.
So they're down in Venezuela and they're in the Dominican and they're all over the place. So hey,
those leagues are funny. I remember
sugarcane leagues.
Stan Kleiber when he managed in I think it was Venezuela. He was talking to the fans were throwing full cans of beer at them.
Yeah.
Like they're nuts down there. Yeah. They are nuts about baseball.
Check out the uniforms, though. I love the advertising on the uniforms.
Is it like it's like European hockey?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. And the uniforms with all the logos and the and
thank
everything.
God they don't advertise
Oh,
on
thank
baseball
God.
uniforms
Yeah.
or on the field, at least yet.
Even when
That's something I could see happening in minor league baseball
please,
someday.
please.
Is having ads on
No,
the field.
don't let
I
that
hope
happen.
not.
Don't let that happen. It's like even when you go to when they play the exhibition games in Japan, and even the American
Oh my
players
God,
got to
yeah,
wear
they're
those
all
uniforms.
over
Like,
the
it's
place.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just stop that. Stop that now.
Yeah, that's one thing about American sports. Soccer worldwide, they wear
Oh, yeah.
the advertisement is way bigger than the logo
Oh
of
yeah,
the
I don't even.
club.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have to admit, I will admit this, and I'm not a soccer fan, but it's like sometimes when I see the soccer uniforms, I don't know what team it is. It's
Oh,
like,
Oh, yeah.
It's
It's like,
every-
it's Nokia.
right,
Okay.
every team
oh
is
yeah, I know
Fly
those
Emirates,
guys. And
right?
then I mean, last year I was
Fly
watching.
Emirates.
I was
Right.
watching a soccer game on TV, and I said, "Why does everybody? Why are there like all these referees on the field? They all got striped uniforms." It was just the team. So
Greg, going back to the argument about this minor leaguers suing Major League Baseball for not making minimum wage. The one thing this article does not take into account is signing bonuses.
right.
Because the number one pick in 2014, Brady Aiken for the Astros, got a signing bonus of over $6 million.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No, $6 million, exactly $6 million. And even guys that are picked in the 10th round, a lot of them receive signing bonuses of 100,000, 137,000, 30,000. It's different for every player.
Sure.
But for the average a player that comes from the United States or Canada, they're getting a big signing bonus out of college or high school.
Right.
And that can carry them. If they're in the first couple rounds, financially that can carry them for their time through the minor leagues.
Yeah, and again, God bless them for that. And I think sometimes it's not just money. I think that sometimes you've got to be smart. There's a kid actually from Rochester who his name is Patrick Erkvitz, and Patrick he played his little league days and his high school days in Penfield, and then he went on to play at MCC, and he signed with the Houston Astros. Now Patrick never made it to the major leagues with Houston, but he is now signed with the Miami Marlins, and he signed as a free agent. But one of the things that he did with his agent and his parents is that when he signed out of MCC, he had, I guess, 6 months left on his college life to get his associate's degree, and his agent and his parents made it so that regardless of whether he made the majors or not, the Astros got to pay for the rest of his college tuition. So whether Patrick makes it to the major leagues
I did
or
read about
not,
that. They almost always pay for the college tuition,
so
which
now,
is great.
That's
So now
awesome.
Patrick he's like 25, 26 years old. He's now pitching in New Orleans, which is the AAA farm club of the Marlins.
Zephyrs, right?
Yep, the Zephyrs. And, hey, I hope he makes it to the majors and he makes it big because he's a left-handed relief pitcher. He's a big strapping kid. But I tell you what, if he doesn't, Astros are paying for his college tuition.
He's set.
And he's set.
That's
It's
great.
a great idea, and I think more teams or more parents and agents ought to look at that. But, Scott Boras just looks at the percentage that he's going to get.
Yeah, well, that's any agent. In general, it seems like a pretty good life to play minor league baseball. I mean, yeah, you can complain about having to ride buses 13 hours, but it's better than working construction.
I don't know. You get paid a decent amount of money to work construction.
Some people.
I tell you, I'm
not everyone.
I would
Good
not
point.
complain. The locker rooms that I get to go in and see how it is, I tell you what, get me at the ballpark at 2:00 in the afternoon. Let me throw on a uniform, hang out in a lazy boy chair, watch ESPN for a little bit, and let me go do my
They
stretching.
probably play a lot of video games, don't they?
Video games and a little bit of cards and
Cards,
everything. A lot of frisbee.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of
That's
frisbee.
a baseball thing.
It's
I didn't know that.
it's a big deal. In fact, Pawtucket, the Paw Sox, when they get to the ballpark, when they travel, the first thing they do is they go out there and they play like a team frisbee.
Really?
Ultimate frisbee?
It's like
That's kind of interesting because like hockey players, they play soccer before the game.
Yeah.
That's all they
Yeah.
do is play soccer. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
that they play frisbee.
Pawtucket does that, and also I want to say Toledo does that. Last year when Toledo came into town, I would go out on the field to grab some interviews, and sure enough, they're out there playing frisbee, and it was kind of cool to watch. And some of the things they do, is
I
interesting.
imagine there's
And
a lot
then-
of locker room antics, like pranks and
I
stuff.
haven't seen a lot of that stuff, but it's interesting what happens also when the veterans come down. If a veteran is down for a rehab stint, the guys from the Twins last year were great. A couple of guys from the visiting teams last year was kind of interesting. Shane Victorino came down. And he was pretty nice, The clubbies like it when the big boys come down because they get the bigger tips, and
That's right.
they also, they have their demands. I mean, certain types of food, certain types of things that they like.
Chicken
to have.
wings,
Lobster
from,
tails.
Yeah,
from Salvatore's. I
yeah.
want chicken wings from
But,
Salvatore's.
a friend of mine is he's a clubby down in the Florida State League, and he actually had a nameless major leaguer come down just for a stint because of the location. And this guy was a pretty big name, and he had to go take care of his dry cleaning, and he had to take care of certain types of bottled water. There was only certain types allowed.
All right.
And then there was only certain types of food that was allowed, and a certain brand of candy bar that had to be played. But when it was all said and done, when the team left the clubhouse, my friend opened up an envelope, and there were a lot of cash in there with a whole lot of zeros that
Wow.
was given to him. So
Very nice.
it's well worth it. So I guess you got to be nice to these guys.
Now they're not allowed to chew tobacco in the minor leagues,
No,
correct? Which
no.
is good.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
I think it sets a terrible example, honestly. I used to do it myself. I got off it. It's not good for you. And you see in the major leagues, they just got these giant lips, especially at the plate.
Yeah, no, it's they got to be careful of that stuff, and it's, that's a bygone era. But there's still guys up in the majors that still do it.
Oh, there's guys that you got to think they're doing 2 packs,
especially
two cans a game.
Even the coaches and the coaches and the managers. I mean, I got to years ago when he was still hanging around. I got to interview Don Zimmer once, and when I got it done interviewing Don Zimmer, I needed a freaking shower because I had tobacco juice all over.
Oh,
me.
no way, really?
Every time he talked, he just spitting all over. And I had on a white shirt and had a tie on, and I had to cover the game afterwards, so I had to go up in the press box, and I was like, you guys, I went to the clubby and I said, look, you got to give me like a T-shirt or something because I got Don Zimmer tobacco juice all over me.
You should have kept it, submitted it to Cooperstown.
Yeah, exactly. But,
sold it on eBay.
eBay. Well, I tell you what, I would have rather had the tobacco juice from Don Zimmer than one time when I was doing an NFL game. I interviewed. Remember Burt Jones, from a quarterback, then the Baltimore Colts.
I'm not a football guy, John. No.
I'm not a football guy.
Okay.
Well, I asked Burt Jones from the then Baltimore Colts a question. He didn't like it, and let's just say that they weren't Salvatore's, but let's just say I had chicken wings all over.
He
me.
throw them at you?
Oh,
He
God.
did. It was the only pass he completed the entire day.
Did you tell him that after he threw him?
No, but somebody else did.
Oh, my God. That's
great.
funny. Sounds like you've been around.
Yeah, I used to years ago. I used to work for ABC Sports.
Wow.
So I got to do Monday Night Football, and that's when it happened. Actually, was covering a Monday Night Football game in Buffalo, and he had made this big bravado before the game that he was going to take the Buffalo Bills secondary and just rip it to shreds.
Mm-hmm.
So after the game, a lot of people don't realize that on Monday Night Football, when the game ends on the East Coast, the West Coast stays on and takes a feed. And I was just doing the feed of interviews and everything, and it was quite interesting. So I just said, "Hey, Bert, you didn't rip the secondary to shreds," and he didn't like that question. And I had chicken wings all over me, so it was interesting.
Hey, Greg, can you stick around for 5 more minutes?
Sure can.
All right, we got to check in with Mark Irwin. We haven't talked boxing ever on this show, but Mark,
interesting first.
the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame has its dinner coming up this Saturday, correct?
Yes.
And what are the details on that?
Okay. The Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame is having its 25th anniversary banquet and awards this weekend, Saturday, at the Diplomat Banquet Center, Diplomat Party House, and Lyle Avenue in Rochester, and right off the 390 exit, the Diplomat, right next to the La Quinta.
The doors open at 6 p.m. and the dinner starts at 7 p.m. And we have a excellent class for the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame this year, the class of 2015. We're inducting Robert Push-Up Frazier, who is one of our native fighters, and
no relation to George Frazier, right?
I think you're thinking Joe Frazier.
Joe Frazier, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not a boxing guy. I'm sorry, Mark.
Smoking George Frazier.
Yeah, Joe Frazier, Smoking Joe, fought George Foreman. Yeah, unfortunately, Smoking Joe's no longer with us, but Push-Up is, and he's a Rochester native, and he will be up here for our dinner. He actually lives in Tampa, Florida now, and he's coming from Florida. And we also have the former featherweight champ of the world, Kevin Kelly, who was one of the announcers for HBO. He does the announcing for HBO International also, and he's coming up, and he's getting our Courage Award. And we have former heavyweight champ of the world, John Ruiz, coming up, getting our Integrity Award. So actually, Mr. Ruiz was the first Latino heavyweight champ of the world. So. And he comes from a long line, of New England heavyweight champs. Actually, John L. Sullivan, the first recognized heavyweight champ was from Boston. They called him the Boston Strong Boy. And there was Jack Sharkey, also the Boston Gob. He was the sailor. And Gene Tunney, he lived in Connecticut. Former heavyweight champ. So he comes by, and of course, Rocky Marciano, the Brockton blockbuster. So, so New England gave us a lot of heavyweight champs, and John Ruiz was the last in that line, or the most recent, and he's going to be here. So,
cool.
We have an excellent dinner. Awesome. We also are honoring our Media and Historian Award. We're having Jack Monroe, who comes to us from Connecticut, and long-time boxing writer, and historian, and he's going to be here. And I'll tell you, anyone who comes to the dinner will get a chance to talk to Jack, and he's definitely a guy who's worth listening to. I would say, and I know, in the boxing community, a lot of people, and a lot of people are very knowledgeable on the sport. But I have never known anyone like Jack Monroe. I mean, the man really, he really knows his stuff. And, he's a lifetime student of the sport. He's followed it since the 50s. And so 60 years, 60 plus years. And he's really got a computer-like mind for boxing knowledge.
So, Mark, real quick, just for people like me that don't know, does Rochester have like a real rich background in boxing? What are some of the guys that have come out of Rochester that have made it big in the sport of boxing?
Well, through the years, there was Rochester probably was more known for some of the. I mean, don't get me wrong, we definitely had our native fighters. We definitely had Ross Virgo. A lot of. I mean. Carmen Basilio, obviously, was probably the best known. He didn't live in Rochester until after his career, although he did fight in Rochester during his career. But there was a lot of big-name fighters that fought in Rochester, on their way up. Sugar Ray Robinson fought here.
Really?
Sugar Ray Robinson fought in Rochester. Joey Maxim fought in Rochester on the way up. So we played host to. There at one time was several arenas in Rochester that hosted boxing. On a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, I know there's a big event at the Jeep Arena coming up.
Oh, is there?
Now, yeah. What's that?
I know there's a big boxing event coming up. I saw the advertisements for it. I believe it's at the it used to be the Armory.
The Jeep Arena, right? Yeah.
Well, the Armory, actually, that was last week.
Oh, it was last week, okay.
Okay. It's already taken place, but there'll be more there. There'll be more there. Actually, they did an ESPN show out of our Armory,
Very
and
cool.
It's actually good to see. Yeah, it is cool. It's good to see that Armory up and being used again.
Yeah, definitely. They do a ton of concerts there, too.
They totally renovated it,
Yeah,
too.
it looks great.
The place is awesome.
Well, they played lacrosse there. I don't know if you know that. It was a big lacrosse venue.
The Griffins?
Did the Griffins play there?
The Griffins didn't. No, the Griffins played at
the War Memorial, right?
Who played there?
Pre-Griffins, they had the Rochester Iroquois and.
John, did you know any of this?
I did know about the Rochester Iroquois.
I've never heard of it. I didn't know that we had a team before the Griffins.
I did know that.
Wow.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the all-time great Rochester Americans, Red Armstrong, used to play for the Iroquois as well.
What?
He used to play lacrosse as
Wow.
well. Yes, he did.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that,
That's
but I
very
knew
cool.
the Iroquois. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
But
hey,
anyway, talking about Rochester's boxing history, though, I mean, we had one native-born world champion, and that was Charles Murray, who did grow up in Rochester and was junior welterweight champ of the world. And Bishop Frazier fought for the world championship. He fought Winky Wright on ESPN and lost a fairly close decision, but he gave it a good battle. It was a good fight, and Winky Wright, was really one of the top ring technicians of recent times, and probably will make Canastota, the World International Boxing Hall of Fame eventually. So, so there's nothing to be ashamed of there. Bishop, gave it a good, give it a battle. So, and we're honoring him, this coming Saturday.
Very cool. It sounds
awesome.
like it's going to be a great event. How can people get tickets, Mark?
Okay, I will tell you exactly. You can call. The tickets are $60, which is actually a fairly, pretty reasonable price actually for an event of this stature. And in fact, it's lower than it was. It used to be $65, and the current management of the hall has lowered it. And you can call 314-3541.
Okay.
314-3541. Real quick, what are the courses? What's for the dinner?
Of course, John wants to know what's for dinner.
I said what's for dinner? What's to eat?
Of course.
Well,
any lobster?
I don't know the exact menu. The Diplomat always, if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, they serve some good food there, John.
Menu over there.
Really good food.
Yeah, they have very good food. Very good food at the Diplomat. And that's one of Rochester's top venues for weddings and whatnot.
Yep.
So it'll be an outstanding dinner, I assure you.
Should be a fantastic night. Mark, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is all fascinating stuff. And that dinner is Saturday night. 314-3541 for tickets.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, man.
Yep. All right. We are running so late today. Greg, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
this is
no
fantastic.
problem. This was awesome.
Did you see this article real quick out of Syracuse.com that baseball historians have decided that the oldest rivalry in baseball might be Syracuse-Rochester?
Yeah,
they've been playing since 1866.
A number of people have said that. There's been a lot of conversation about that, and it makes sense to me. Rochester is the oldest sports franchise in the country, so it certainly makes sense. And I think that that actually was a topic the other day. A lot of people were talking about that. I don't know when that came out, but a lot of people were talking about that. So,
and for one season in 1890. Both Rochester and Syracuse played in what was technically known as the Major Leagues.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
It was called the American Association,
American
correct?
Association, yes.
Yeah, which was that was pretty cool. And apparently Rochester was a pretty good team that year. Syracuse was not, but Rochester was a pretty good team.
Yeah, and how cool is that? We can say we had Major Leagues. And did you know this? How about this? Now, I know we don't want to talk about death, but this is kind of cool. Did you know that the pitcher who pitched the very first no-hitter in the history of the New York Yankees, and he pitched it against the Boston Red Sox, and it was pitched at the very first no-hitter in Fenway Park, was from Rochester, New York.
Really?
And he's buried at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the one next to Walmart?
The one right up here on Lake Avenue.
Up on Lake Avenue,
Yeah.
and there's Riverside on the
Yeah,
other
exactly.
side.
Oh, yeah, I know
Holy
exactly.
Sepulchre on the other
Yeah,
side.
I know exactly
The Hall
where
of
that
Fame
is.
is coming up to put a little proof on his little plaque on everything. In the sky.
Wow.
Yeah, George Mogridge.
George Mogridge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's definitely an
pretty cool.
old-timey name if there ever was one.
The history of baseball in Rochester is so rich. I mean, it's
unbelievable.
not just the Red Wings.
Right.
You had the Broncos and the Tribe and the Rochesters. And I don't know if you've ever seen vintage baseball. I used to play vintage baseball.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
the coolest thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like at the Genesee Country Museum.
It's the coolest thing
Yep.
ever.
It's a blast.
With all the old uniforms. But,
Yep.
baseball, some people, I read once that some people tried to claim that baseball started in Mumford. But that's probably
That's
not
what
true.
they say
It was
at the Genesee Country
probably-
Museum.
It probably came from New Jersey, from
Right.
Hoboken, New Jersey.
Right,
That's
right.
what seems to be the consensus.
Yeah, but Rochester's just got tons of history. So
Either way, it might have been a year or two between the time it was first played in Hoboken and then when they started playing it in Mumford.
right,
Yeah,
you see, you can't beat our past. You can't.
That's
So.
great. Greg, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for joining
no
us.
problem.
I learned so
Anytime.
much today. Good stuff.
Great stuff.
John, do you got to take off?
Yes, I got to
All right.
sign off. So thank you very much, Rochester. Unfortunately, I got to go to work. Unlike these and
Unlike the
I was
minor
thinking
league
these minor league
baseball
baseballers,
players.
they wouldn't have to go to work.
No.
Maybe you're right because I have to leave and go to work.
Right.
Leave
They
this
just got to go to the
sports show
ballpark.
that I love.
They're just at
I
the
would love to
ballpark.
have to go to the ballpark.
Right.
So this is John Cargill signing off, Rochester. I will see you next week.
All right. Thank you again, Greg. We got to thank some more sponsors. Rochester Sports and Physical Therapy is your home for all of your physical therapy needs. They are conveniently located off of 390, off of just right off exit 13. Take the Highland Road exit. It's 125 Red Creek Drive. Whether you have you had surgery, whether you got shoulder problems, knee problems, ankle problems, anything, back issues, back pain, go check them out. The best part is you do not even need a prescription from your doctor to get physical therapy. Your insurance, as long as you have insurance, almost all of them will cover up to 10 visits to a physical therapist without a prescription. So just give them a call today, 334-8090. Schedule your first appointment. Tell them you heard them on Sports Mumblings as well. And you know what? Their office is great. Their physical therapist, Katie, Edna, have been doing this for a really long time. They both are extremely talented and extremely knowledgeable. So give Rochester Sports and Physical Therapy 2 a call, 334-8090. That's 334-8090. And don't forget to check out the official bar and strip club of Rochester Sports Mumblings. That is the Mirage, located at 414 Westridge Road, right on the corner of Westridge Road and Dewey. They are open 7 nights a week. That if you're listening on Monday, go check them out tonight. If you're listening on Tuesday, go check them out. They're open 7 nights a week, 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. They open up early on Fridays, 4 o'clock for happy hour. Free admission from 4 to 8 p.m. Also Saturday, 7 o'clock happy hour at the bar. They have not only the coldest drinks, the coldest beer in Rochester, but by far the hottest girls. There's no comparison. If you go to the other clubs, Mirage does have the hottest girls. Check them out tonight, 414 Westridge Road. That is the Mirage, proud sponsor. They've been a sponsor for a while, and we really, really appreciate it. Wow, what a show. We didn't even get to the Nighthawks with a huge victory, 14-6 over the New England Black Wolves at home. Angus Goodleaf with 32 saves. Cody Jameson with 3 goals, 7 assists for 10 points. The Nighthawks need a Toronto loss at New England Friday and to beat Minnesota on the road Saturday in order to win the East Division and get a first-round bye. It's very, very possible. The Rattlers played a very tough opponent, the New York Lizards, who are now 3-0. They got Paul Rabel. They got some of the best players in lacrosse. They played them on Long Island, only lost by 2 goals, 14-12. They'll return home, though, this weekend to play the Florida Launch, 1 p.m. at Eunice Kennedy Shriver Stadium in Brockport. It's a great venue, guys. I was there for the home opener, which was really cold. It's going to be much warmer this Sunday. Trust me, it's a cool venue. It's different than Salem's. It's a very cool venue. It's got that college feel. You've got the college students there at the game. It's a good atmosphere. Tickets just $15, and the Rattlers are planning on getting 4 key players back from the National Lacrosse League, and possibly in time for Sunday's game. Mike Manley and Mark Cockerton from the New England Black Wolves, who finished their season Friday, and Miles Thompson, the brother of Ty Thompson, who had a hat trick yesterday in Long Island, and also Joel White, former Nighthawk, both coming from the Minnesota Swarm. So the Rattlers should be much more bolstered, both offensively and defensively, for Sunday's game. And, of course, the Rhinos, we didn't even get to talk about it, but the Rhinos with a huge 2-0 victory in their home opener over Red Bull New York, improving to 4-0-2 on the young season, still undefeated, tied for first place with the Richmond Kickers, and they will be home again Saturday, May 9th against Toronto FC2. And remember, you can win 4 tickets to the Rhinos game every single show. We do not have a trivia winner yet today, so go to our Facebook page, find the trivia question for today. You can win 4 tickets to the Rhinos game on May 9th, and they're really good tickets. The person that won last week actually got back to me and said that the tickets were really, really good, right on the sideline. Great view of the field. So remember, Saturday, May 9th at Salem Stadium, 7:05 against Toronto FC2. First game ever against the Toronto FC2. Also, thank you to RockSportsNetwork.com. All of their shows, including Man and Man on Ice, The Big Schmaz, local high school sports broadcasts, and live streaming of men and women's lacrosse games. Also, thank you to LateNightSportsRadio.com, our home on Tuesday nights. Thank you, guys. We will talk to you again next week.